Amy Hinojosa, and I am the President and CEO of MANA, a National Latina Organization. But I'm going to turn over the program to a member of our MANA National Board of Directors. Please help me welcome from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Leticia Galvez-Trujillo.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bienvenidas, estimadas hermanas y hermanos. We have some hermanos joining us today, so bienvenidos a todos. Gracias, muchísimas gracias por unirse con nosotros en este MANA evento nacional de hoy. So welcome, esteemed hermanas and hermanos. My name is Leticia Trujillo, and I serve on the MANA National Board of Directors, and I am also Vice President of MANA de Albuquerque. I am extremely excited and humbled and also honored to be your host today. On behalf of MANA National Board of Directors, we send our wishes for your continued health and strength as we progress through varying stages of COVID impacts. We also continue standing in solitude, praying for justice, along with our Black and Afro-Latino brothers and sisters under the wake of protests for law enforcement and criminal justice reform. Our communities are suffering right now, and during these dark times, we often feel helpless and unable to see a way forward, right? So in spirit of our work with MANA, we are honored to have philanthropist, former Wall Street broker, international speaker, self-advocacy coach, and gran author, Maria Mastrodicasa join us to have a discussion about her new book, You'll Never, The Journey to What is Possible Through Self-Advocacy. Maria has made a commitment for all women to feel safe and valued in school, the workplace, and in the home. Thank you all so much for joining us today. You all are in for quite a treat. So we're just going to jump right into it. So I'm going to start by saying what's been on. I've been thinking about this since I've been reading your book, and I'm like, what I find most fascinating about your book is that you battled a learning disability, dyslexia to be specific, and really felt like school wasn't a place that supported or valued you. We have so many girls in our Hermanitas Youth Mentoring Program across the nation who can relate to your story for sure. Can you please share with us your experiences growing up and what motivated you to write your book?
Well, my experience with dyslexia, was frustrating because it wasn't named. No one knew what it was. No one really researched it or found out or helped me. And so that was frustrating. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I mean, deep down, I knew I could understand everything. I could learn. It was those tests that were timed, as we all know, all the children know, statewide tests that are timed. So that was, it was very, very frustrating. And I think what made me write this book is through we all have our roller coasters, we have our good days, our bad days, and our seasons. And so in the dark seasons or the low of the roller coaster, my cousin used to say, wow, that's going to make a great book. That would make a great book. And then through my life, if I just had a short thing, she would say, now that would be a good chapter. So I talk about it in the book. I really dedicate the book to my children and my cousin Carmela, because she inspired me to write the book, and I never knew what it would turn out to be. And yet it is all about self-advocacy, and I didn't realize it until the writing of the book. When I look back from 3rd grade and I look at the middle school and I look at all the different events, how I was able to advocate for myself and how it changed the trajectory of my life by doing so.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So what advice would you give to a young woman who might be feeling the way you felt when you were in school? Who did you turn to? What are their resources? Who can they turn to? Who can they talk to?
I think the most important thing, especially for younger children, male and female, is that they feel safe with whoever they're speaking with. You know, I can name a lot of different situations that I did not feel safe in school. So I waited. I teach my children to always wait until you're in a safe environment, and go, you know, whoever that may be. It could be your grandmother, it could be an aunt. Make sure that you're safe, you know, and speak to a person who makes you feel safe, and that'll, you know, keep what you say confidential if, you know, if need be, you know, that you can open up freely.
Right. I think that is key. Having someone that you can confide in and feel safe with, and that's something that our girls, when we work with our Hermanitas mentorship program, that's something that we try to talk to them about. What are some of the criteria to look for when choosing that person that they can turn to advice, or what is it that what characteristics can you share with us in terms of how did you choose the people to turn to? Like what were some of the characteristics that you look for?
Well, I tend to, you could feel, you know, there's a feeling of comfort around that person, and someone who is a good listener, and
Yes.
someone who doesn't gossip. So if you hear, you know, it could be a teacher, and if, you know, it's how they be. So if you hear them always talking about students or things like that, and maybe not that person, or an aunt, or not, people who don't keep your confidence. And what I taught my children, and what I'd like to share is, especially being a single mom at some point, is that when someone says, don't tell your parents, or don't tell anyone, that should be a trigger that you're probably not safe. And what a child should do is say, oh, of course, absolutely, I would never, and make that person believe that you would never tell. And as soon as you feel safe, in a safe place, in a safe environment, away from that person, then tell. Then tell someone you feel safe. You know, obviously, you know, you could say police officers, you could say aunts, uncles, and teachers, you know, teachers, principals. I mean, there's so many people that look out for you, mentors.
Right. Thank you, Maria. And how do girls avoid going down the wrong path with drugs and alcohol? You know, they're faced with so many pressures, or getting caught up with the wrong friends, or how do they avoid the pressures of social media?
Well, for children, you know, you really have to, know what, look at where you want to be in a month, in a year, or if you were being filmed. You know, with all the social media, you never know if your friends are filming you. Do you really want what you're going to do to change the path of your life? So drugs, you know, if you're an A student, it's just a downhill spiral. What I've chosen was to make sure I was clear and focused. And, you know, I was allowed to, I grew up in an Italian family. We were allowed to have a sip of wine. We were allowed, there was no alcoholism. To do this, you know, you can't do that anymore. You know, you have to be of legal age. So it's all these you can't do. And then you're around this peer pressure. I've been around peer pressure. I worked on Wall Street, and there were, you know, the movie Wall Street, and The Wolves of Wall Street. And I just didn't want to go down that path of not being in control, because one thing spirals down into another thing. And so you just have to have this feeling inside you, be stronger than that wanting to fit in. You know, it's not the right crowd if they don't understand that you don't want to participate in something.
Right.
And I've
Right.
had friends who did things I don't approve of, yet they didn't force me to. They didn't force me to.
Right. So speaking of Wall Street, it's such a male-dominated environment. Tell us about the environment you experienced, and did you have allies, male or female?
Yes, I did have allies, thankfully, both male and female. Not very many females. There weren't many females there. I was the only female in my one department, and there were a few females in the 80s on the trading floor. There weren't that many. So I did have some female allies. that worked in other companies. In my company in particular, they were more acquaintances. They weren't really friends because they did things that, you know, they did drugs, some of them. And so I didn't get invited out with them in the evenings. And that was okay because that's not the path I wanted to take. So I was okay with that. And I did have some allies. It was a very male-dominated world. They told me it's a man's world. Lucky I was invited. And they told me, you'll never be a broker here. And so I listened, and I didn't understand that. Like, I didn't really take it all in. I was like, well, what do you mean? And so at the one firm, I was not. And I just kept pursuing my education on my own. I had a tutor. I took non-credit courses. I believe in education. I wanted to learn. I didn't know until I got the tutor that I was dyslexic. And I was 18 or 19 when I found out.
Oh, so you found out at a later, like you had already gone through high school with this learning disability and weren't aware that you had that learning disability?
I was not aware. I was, you know, told by teachers and other people told my parents that I would never amount to anything because I could not read. And I could read, I just could not read well. I could not read well. And so by the 9th grade, they said, if you do not pass, you won't be able to move forward into high school. And so, yeah, it was upsetting, yet I just knew something in me. And I went to New York and I said, I'm going to get a job. And I had gotten this job on the trading floor of the government market, and it was a trainee position. And I saw that there were people there from Yale and Harvard and so on, and Ivy League schools. And that's when I decided to get a tutor. So again, I advocated for myself because I realized the environment I was in, and I looked around and I said, well, I'm going to need more help. So that's one way to advocate for yourself, is realizing that you will need help and then getting the help that you need to get you to where you want to be. I would have never been a broker had I not seeked out a tutor on my own, not paid for it on my own, not took the extra travel time and took, you know, action steps to get to where I wanted to be.
And, you know, I really appreciate the whole, in your book, the whole point about you'll never be a broker. You'll never. And a Wall Street broker was exactly what you became. So I really appreciated that persistence and that you had and the confidence in yourself to pave your own path and move forward. I really appreciate that.
It's funny you say confidence, because I didn't really feel that I was confident. What I felt was that there was possibility. I thought, if I do everything that I can, then it's possible for me to become a broker. And if not, I would have still been the assistant broker. I was going to try. And so at the time, I didn't think it was confidence. I just thought, well, if I try and I do everything I can, I won't have regrets. And that was important.
That's a very good point. A lot of times you see it more as you do what you need to do in the moment. And most of the time as females, I know I've experienced it as a Hispanic woman going through life, and sometimes you don't feel confident, but then you don't realize that it's confidence that pushes you through. You just think in the moment, you know, we are taught to rise up and do what we need to do in the moment, and with very little complaint along the way. You know, we just have to push
through. And that's the thing, I want everyone to rise up. I know that, so even if you weren't told you'll never, you're told you can't, you won't, it's not possible. If it was possible for me, it's possible for everyone here today. You know, and if what you thought was possible doesn't happen, do everything you can so you don't have regrets. You can't look back, because when you give up, you regret it. You know, it could be a workout. It could be a simple thing. If you give up, you regret it. And let's not have any regrets.
I love that message. Rise up and live with no regrets. That's a great message. Appreciate that. So let's talk about self-advocacy. What is self-advocacy, and what about this concept has helped you find success?
Well, self-advocacy, as you know, is it's easier to advocate for someone else. So, you know, whether you're, you know, a child and you want to stick up for your brother, or your parent, or you're a parent and you're looking out for your child, you're advocating for them, or an elderly person that's in the hospital, you're advocating for them. So what is it like to advocate for yourself? It seems to be a little harder to advocate for ourselves, especially as women. We're caregivers. We want to take care of everyone. How do we care for ourselves? And, you know, it's really like speaking your truth. So you're working as hard, if not harder, than your male counterpart. How do you then ask for a raise? How do you even know? And it's a great question to ask. You know, oh, I've been working really hard. I'm doing this, you know, am I making the same as, you know, so and so? And, you know, I feel like I should be.
Right.
Because we should have equal pay. I know I didn't at the time, and although I asked, it was not going to happen, and it was a choice that I had to make. I was doing very well for someone who didn't have, you know, which I always say, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I didn't have the opportunity to get my high school diploma due to, you know, family situations and being in danger. And I still went to get educated. I just didn't have the degree. So I did go to NYU, and I did get a tutor and things like that. Education is very important. It is very important.
I found that very fascinating as well, that you were able to just perseverance, incredible. So you, in your book, you talk about feeling the pressures of needing a job, but yet being unsure of what type of work you were qualified for, or to do, what type of work you were qualified to do. Where did you find the self-reliance within yourself to aim for high goals and carve a professional path for yourself?
I think at a young age, I wanted to find out for myself, almost because I was told you'll never, that what everybody was saying was wrong, that not that they were wrong, but that that I could get a job. So I decided, even though my mom, my sister, there were many people who said, you'll never, because, and they were telling me what was in their mindset, what they knew, what they believed, because it's the chances of me getting a job were very slim. And I said, I'm going to still go to New York with this token. And I went to an unemployment agency, not knowing what I would be qualified for. And then they hired me, the employment agency. And I worked for them for a short time. And they had so many opportunities coming in. It was the best job. I knew how to dress. I know how to speak and how to write a resume. And then I went on this trainee position job, and I fell in love with it. The excitement of the trading floor. And I wanted to do that.
All right, thank you. So with diversity and inclusion being such a buzzword these days, what do you think it will take for women to be truly equal in an environment such as Wall Street?
Yes, such as Wall Street. I believe that we have to stop feeling shame or guilt for wanting these same positions, and we have to just speak our truth and go out there and apply for these jobs and know that we are worthy to have the same job. I mean, remember when I went to school, you couldn't take wood shop as a girl. You couldn't do certain gym classes, climb the ropes and do that. That's not the case anymore. And so you get to ask for that position. And you also get to say, which I told a friend recently, now, is that because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm a woman that you don't feel I'm qualified? And it raises some things in them, you know, just like the racial issues that are going on now. So you ask the question, you ask that question, and I think that it's possible for you to have any job that you want. any position that you want, whether it be Wall Street. I don't think there should be any exclusion.
Yes, I love that message as well. Anything is possible, right? If you just keep your focus and aim high. That's awesome. Thank you, Maria. So COVID-19 has forced all of our families indoors. Even under normal circumstances, too much togetherness can make tempers flare. For those women suffering domestic violence, the current conditions force them into isolation with their abuser. You yourself talk about being a victim of domestic violence and also being a survivor. Please help us understand the path out of that kind of situation.
Yes, that was the most difficult chapter to write and the most difficult thing to talk about, and even to say the word victim. And so we get to talk about it because there is no shame, you know. I mean, it is what it is. And so how did I get out of that situation? It was a journey. Just that alone was a journey. I knew early on that I wasn't safe. I knew that I needed to get out. And you know, when you're threatened and your life is in danger, or you're going to be left with nothing. And, you know, I had this big career, and then I helped him build his career. So to be left that way, what are you going to do? So I made a plan. And I think it's very, very important to have a plan and to be strategic, because you have to remember, if somebody is your abuser, they are your enemy. They are your adversary. And you need to protect yourself at all costs. I had no family to go to, and I needed to make sure that I made the right decision before I discussed it. I never talked about him. I never talked about what was happening until I knew for sure I was going to go. So, you know, people look at me now, or they looked at me when I'd be dressed up, and they would not know what went on behind the closed doors of that house. It's not like he had money or anything. He had nothing. He lived in a garage apartment and drove a Pontiac or something, or a Buick, and which there's nothing wrong with that, but he didn't have it, and I helped him build it. And we had all these beautiful things, and people would go, oh, what does he do? I didn't really care at that point. I just thought that we were going to build a life together, and it was going to be beautiful and lovely, and I had this beautiful home, and I couldn't wait to get out of there because I wasn't safe. And so we get to feel safe, and you need to make a plan. And even if you have to get up in the middle of the night to, you know, write things down and get documents, because they need your taxes, they need all kinds of information for you to get divorced. And I teach people step by step, because it's very, very important. But the most important thing is that you're safe. And what are you going to do? And so you get to talk to people. One of the most important things is being involved in your community. Getting to know your police officers, because who are they going to believe? And if they know you, they'll believe you. Very, very important.
I love that. If they know you, they'll believe you. That's right. Thank you. So many times throughout your life, you've had to pick yourself up and push forward. Let's talk to everyone joining us today about the tools you've used to really refocus and move upward and onward. What's the most important thing someone should remember when they are in a hard place?
One is to really focus, you know, at a young age, I knew to take a breath. I don't know how, is to really just focus on how they're feeling. Focus on how you're feeling. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, you just need to get out. You just need to do this. External things, you know, shop, drink, take, you know, prescription medication, do all these things. It's just not going to get you out of this low point. So I think, you know, being still, being quiet, and feeding yourself with good books, and, you know, having great people around you. But some people are isolated. I was isolated. I didn't really have anyone to talk to. So I had to lift myself up. And that's why I talk about, like, it's like being in the canvas, getting hit, you know, time and time again. How do you keep picking yourself up? And there was a time that I remember that I was really like in the fetal position. I really didn't know if I was going to get through the night, because the pain was so deep. I thought to go through this litigation and all these things, what would I be left with? What would I have? How would I take care of my children? And I just knew that I needed to be focused and clear. And I wrote down the steps, and I made sure that when I finally did tell people that I got the help that I needed and that people believed me, and I spoke clearly and articulately, because I did at times become emotional, and it didn't work for me. I got emotional with my attorneys. I got emotional with the police, and they don't really listen. And so how was I going to get out of that situation? And I just kept focusing on the vision. Where do I want to be in 3 months, in a year? I was getting older, and I was in this marriage, and I just kept thinking, where will I'm almost 60, I'll be 58 this year. And so I'm thinking, where will I be at age, 42, 40? Where will I be if I don't get out of this? What is my life going to be like? So I just kept looking forward, and I had a vision of, freedom and what that would be like, and what would it feel like to be able to take care of my children and have this freedom and be safe. So that's really what I focused on, is what I wanted, what I envisioned.
The other thing thank you, Maria, for that. The other thing I find fascinating is that in that time you were isolated. You were completely isolated during a very dark time in your life. And oftentimes, of course, we start to feel helpless, and it's a downward spiral from there. And one thing, it's a domino effect, right? You just start sinking your self-confidence, your self-worth, everything just starts spiraling down out of control. And to be able in that moment to pick yourself up and kind of coach yourself through that and saying, it's okay, I have a right to my emotions. I have a right to feel. My emotions are valid. I have a right to feel the way I feel. And there isn't, I can get out of this. I can rise up, as I just mentioned, go upward and onward, continue moving forward, and to be able to really have the strength and the just give yourself that power, that empowerment to say, even though I'm alone, I have myself, kind of thing.
Yes, I didn't feel like I had strength. And so for those who have not read the book yet, so pretty much every day, not every day, but pretty much every day, from head to toe, I was told how ugly I was, how horrible I was, I did something wrong, make the bed, don't make the bed, whatever I did was the wrong thing. Don't sit there, sit here. So I had a very confused mind, and I was not sure. And so I have my resources in the book, and there are other resources. So I did advocate for myself, and I spoke to different people to find help. And I did go to this 180 Turning Lives Around that dealt with domestic violence. And this was an amazing place because they showed films of different ways of abuse. So it could be verbal, it could be, physical, it could be just different things. And they said, Maria, which one can you identify with? I said, each one on a different day. And that was like, I didn't even realize, because we don't realize when it's happening over time and you're isolated and no one sees, that it actually is abuse. And it could be with even dating, and the young girls that are on here, it could be when you're dating, when someone just is like, they want to know where you are at every minute, and they start with this, control. It's very, very important that we have our own independence and no one is, controlling us, so to speak.
Okay, thank you for that. And so another question I'm going to kind of put out there before we open it up to everyone else, because I'm kind of curious. This happened 30 years ago, your experience 20, 30, if you could talk to that 40-year-old self of yours, because it was around that age you mentioned, what advice would you give your 40-year-old self at that moment?
To know that I was worthy. To know that I was worthy, and that I'm valuable, and I get to go. I get to go. I'm going to be safe no matter what. I'm going to be safe. Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You will be okay. And you are. Look, you're an amazing success story. It's just incredible. And you've had some challenging experiences, and many of these experiences shape who we are today.
Yes.
Are there some of the experiences, many of us say, well, if you could change one thing in your past, what would it be? But are there, and you don't have to go into any detail, but are there some experiences in your past that helped you build character, who you are today? And are there experiences that you say, I wouldn't change that, even though there may not be the best of circumstances, the best experiences, maybe they're more the challenging ones? Would you say to yourself, you know, some of those experiences I would not change because they helped build me today?
That's a great question. You know, looking back, you could say, well, I wish this didn't happen, or I wish this didn't happen. And after writing the book, and in the writing of the book, I deleted a lot of things that didn't need to be there, that I get to share in a forum like this, or I get to share personally with my coaching, because it's not necessary. And I look at it like a staircase. So there's a staircase. And so that challenge that I went through gave me the strength to deal with then the next. And so when I talk in the book about my father's wife, and the way she was being with her children, and what I encountered with her, and how she treated me, really helped me to deal with my ex-husband. That gave me, I've never seen anything like it. I didn't grow up. I grew up in a very calm, pretty easygoing family. And you know, passionate, you know, the Italian, like the Latino, just very passionate people. They talk fast and talk above each other and kind of things like that, but not. And so it was a staircase. And so all the things that happened with her really helped me to get through. I don't think I would have gotten through that situation with my ex. And then what I learned there, and advocating for myself there, really helped me with my last litigation. And to advocate for myself. So I look at it like a staircase, and each time I pulled myself up and I got onto that next step, helped me to get through the next. And in the future, I'll probably have another challenge, and I will be able to handle it better. I might not think about it in the moment, because in the moment you're in it. And that's why it's so important to have other people there to help you and pull you up, you know, and not lone wolf it, not speak out, because domestic violence is very shameful. And whether it's happening to a man or a woman, it's shameful, and we get to talk about it so it stops. And child abuse.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Oh, it's very inspiring and emotional at the same time. You are an inspiration and a reminder of why we do what we do.